How's everybody doing today? I know last time I said I was going to be doing the tutorial on the WordPress admin on the functionality. I'm going to take a little break from WordPress today and I'm going to discuss PHP frameworks. The reason being is I've gotten a lot of questions on different kinds of frameworks, which ones to use, how to use them, and things like that. So today's not going to be so much of a tutorial, but more of a informational on PHP frameworks, how to use them, what they're consistent of, things like that. So what is a framework? Instead of using nice charts like some people use or drawing up nice things, I'm just going to use Wiki to help me. So PHP framework. A web application framework is a software framework that is designed to support the development of dynamic websites, web applications, and web services. The framework aims to alleviate the overhead associated with common activities performed in web development. So in short, all those words mean that a web framework makes a web developer's job a whole lot easier. Plain and simple. Frameworks are, what they do is some of them generate code for you. They talk to the database for you. They perform queries for you without you having to actually write the code for it. So frameworks are very, very, very helpful for if you're a professional web developer. They make life so much easier. Like I said, they generate code for you. Getting information from the database is so much easier. For example, all the tutorials that you will find on my YouTube channel or my website, I have written in raw PHP, which is probably what most of you have been using. Raw PHP is just PHP that gets sent to the web server. It gets rendered as HTML, then sent back to the browser. Nothing else. The problem with that is when you have to write a large-scale web application or website, is writing each and every line of code and writing each and every database query. It gets very, very time-consuming and turns into a pain in the neck. So what frameworks do is they alleviate a lot of code. They make it so you don't have to write as much code, but you're still getting the same result, and they make life very, very easy. Any of the frameworks I'm going to be talking about today utilize the MVC pattern, which is the model, view, and controller. Now, what that is the model, view, controller is 3 parts of a framework, which is pretty much the meat and potatoes of the framework. To give you a definition, I'm going to use Wiki. It's just easier that way. The model, view, controller is a software designed for interactive computer user interfaces that separates the representation of information from the user's interaction with it. To break that down and make it more simple for you is the model talks to the database. The view is what your user sees and what you see and what everybody sees on the web page. And the controller is kind of what controls all of it, is what controls the data going from the model to the view and controls which web pages are being served here, the URLs even in some web frameworks. But how it works is the model talks to the controller first. So the model will always talk to the controller, then the controller takes that data and sends it to the view. The view and the model never talk to each other. Never, ever, ever in any MVC framework, the model and the view will never talk to each other. It all goes through the controller, which makes it easier to remember that the controller controls everything. Anything that gets done through the controller. But any framework that you're going to use, not any framework you're going to use, but most frameworks that I like and that most web developers I know like has an MVC pattern in it. It makes life a lot easier, and again, makes code writing so much better. So let's take a look at some PHP web frameworks, if I can speak there. Where'd it go? I lost it. There we go. So these are all the PHP frameworks that you can use. Some of these actually have to be installed on your server before you can use them. Some of them you can just upload the files and it's all internal. It just kind of depends. So like, wrong way. Like ones I'm familiar with is I can write in I know the Zen framework, Yi, Symfony. I know Joomla. Obviously, don't really work with that as much anymore. CodeIgniter and Cake PHP. One I've been working with a lot lately with is Yi, which is this one down here. Yi is a lot like Ruby on Rails. If any of you have ever used Ruby on Rails, I do like that framework. Not particularly fond of Ruby myself, but that's just me. I mean, everybody's different and everybody's style is different. But but yeah, those are just a few of the PHP frameworks. Now, I've never met anybody that knows all the PHP frameworks or has even used all of them. So there's just too many of them to memorize, because each PHP framework, generally they have their own internal functions, which eliminates the code that you would be writing. So I mean, to memorize all that would be a task in its own right, and I'd like to shake that person's hand if they did know them all. But nevertheless, anyways, but yeah, these are just some PHP web frameworks which you can use to make your code writing go better, and make your life a little bit easier. But one thing I would like to stress is, before you start using PHP frameworks, make sure you know PHP, not all the way well, but enough well that you feel comfortable writing any application in raw PHP before you move on to writing in frameworks. Because if you know PHP, fairly good, when you come to a framework, it's going to be much, much easier for you to be writing code and understanding what stuff means, because a lot of these frameworks generate code that you don't have to write. But you do need to understand what the code is that is being generated. But like a lot of questions I've been getting lately is, what's a good PHP framework to use? Well, there's not a real good answer for that. That all kind of depends on the person or the project. I like a couple of different ones. Like I said, I've used CodeIgniter and Cake PHP. Not real fond of them, but I can use them. Not fond of them. I've used Symfony, and I've used Yi and Zen. If you have to ask me, I'd go between Yi or Zen. That's just where I'm at with it. But even though it's not on here while I'm talking about it, WordPress is kind of framework, is a framework too, because it has its own internal functions. Like WP or get sidebar, that's a WordPress function. You can't use that outside of a WordPress project because the server won't know what you're talking about. But WordPress is a type of framework. But it's not listed on here because it's not like an MVC framework of sorts, or it doesn't. Yeah, that's kind of a gray area. I'll just leave that alone for now. But anyways, but if you have to ask me, I prefer Yi or Zen. CodeIgniter isn't bad, but it's not too great. And this is just my opinion too. I mean, don't take this to the bank. And there's Cake PHP and Symfony, and I've worked with all those. But like I said, I started using Yi lately, and I kind of prefer that one. It's growing on me. That one's a lot like, I think I already said, that one's a lot like Ruby on Rails. But then another thing with all these frameworks, you have all these frameworks listed here. Another key thing is, some of these are command line only or command line optional, where you have to use the command line to generate the right functions or to generate code. So you may not be comfortable using the command line, and for those of you who don't know what the command line is, I'm in a Linux-based operating system, so mine looks different. But if you're in Windows, it's called command prompt. And this is what the command line is generating commands from the line. For certain frameworks, that's how you have to do it. So if you're not comfortable using this, then there's certain ones that you should probably just stay away from. Yi, you can or you can't. They just changed it over so you don't really have to. But like, to get out of PHP for a second, one second, I want to get rid of that. But to get out of PHP for a second, go down to Ruby. And part of a Ruby framework is Ruby on Rails. Ruby on Rails is all done from the command line. Not writing code itself, but generating files, web servers, things like that. That's all done from the command line. So if you're not comfortable with the command line, there's just certain frameworks you should stay away from. But then there's other frameworks that, per se, CodeIgniter, you don't need to use the command line. So for those of you that are getting into frameworks and you're trying to find a good one, my best advice is just go to their websites, flip through them, see how they work, make sure they have really good documentation on how their framework works. Because if you don't have really good documentation, then nobody knows what's going on except for, the 3 people who wrote the framework. But, just like CodeIgniter here, let's click on this. And this is by Ellis Labs. And we'll just go to the website. This has very good documentation. It's open source, which means you can contribute to it and things like that. And this one, all you have to do is just download it, and you're ready to go. But it has its own wiki and things like that. But if you're looking for a new one, just go to each, find a few that you think you might like. Go to their websites, flip through them, see if it's for you or for your project. And if it is, great. If not, just keep moving on until you find something you like. And even then, it can take, years for you to stumble across a actual framework that maybe it's one you never heard of before, and you all of a sudden just ran across it and you're in love with it. So. So if you're looking for a framework, it may not happen overnight, but it was just something I wanted to talk about today because I've been getting a lot of questions in my inbox about it, how to use it, comments and things like that. So that's PHP Frameworks, kind of wrapped up simply. It's but for starting out, like I said, I would recommend that you know PHP fairly well, not extremely well, but fairly well before you get into actual frameworks, because it starts generating code for you, and if you don't know what it means and it's already generated, then that's just code there you don't know what it means, and that does not help you at all in the long run. So yeah, I just want to kind of discuss frameworks. If you have any questions on them, please feel free to let me know. You have questions on how any of them work. I do know a lot of them. I don't know all of them, like I said. So if you're talking about a specific one, I may or may not be able to help you, depending on which one it is. So, but yeah, that's frameworks as a whole. Let's see here. And another thing. I've been doing updates on my website, and earlier this month I created a Facebook fan page. If you like my tutorials, or if you're on Facebook, just stop by, check it out, and I have a like box over here on the website. And that's it's a page for the website if you want to check that out. Other than that, as usual, I'm helping you out. You can get updates via my YouTube channel, which is RyanCon4. Or you can come straight over to my website, which has changed. I mentioned this last time. Someone stole my domain out from under me, and I let it expire. That was my own fault. But it's ryanmcon.com now. And all my videos are on here, and most of the code for any tutorial should still be on here. So that's what I wanted to go over today. Like I said, if you have any questions at all, drop me a comment on my site. You can leave one in the contact page, or just leave me a comment on my YouTube channel, and I've been trying to be pretty good about getting back about it. Yeah, so that's PHP Frameworks kind of been wrapped up in kind of a hurry. So like I said, if you have any questions, let me know. All right.